Welcome to Top to Bottom Male Romance Podcast, where we celebrate all things male romance. I am Jessica.
And I'm Markie.
And this is our June bottom episode.
Yes. And just before we get started with all the cool stuff we wanted to talk about, wanted to bring up that we do have some reader groups that you can jump into. We have a Facebook group and a Goodreads group where you can jump in and talk about our bottom picks for the month, any cool books that you're reading, cool comic books that you found, a new cool movie you want to share with us about, anything that has to do with male romance or any general silliness. You can jump in and talk to us. Also, we do have a Patreon. Our patrons get cool inside scoop with any updates that we have about upcoming author interviews. And I do want to hint that we have a really cool one lined up soon. So if you'd like to jump in and submit author questions and find out who's going to be up next on our podcast, you can definitely go and do that. It would be lovely.
And as usual, whatever you're listening to us on, whether that's iTunes or Stitcher or Spotify, make sure you give us a rating on there. It helps other people find us too. But I think that's it for our housekeeping notes. This is June. It's Pride Month.
It is.
Yeah. This means a lot to our community and to, of course, a much, much larger community.
So June being Pride Month is very important, like Jess said, to not only the male romance community, but for the entire spectrum of the LGBTQ plus community. It is not just a cool month for parades and celebration, but it also brings awareness to the civil rights issues that the LGBTQ plus community goes through on a daily basis and the strides that we've made and things that we still do need to work on. So it's very important if you're able to show support, even in the smallest ways, be an ally, if you're part of the spectrum, if you're able to go to any of the pride parades going on or, help educate the community at large for certain things that are going on. This is the best month to do that. I actually recently posted on my own personal Facebook that I identify as bisexual, and a lot of my friends didn't know that. And it was kind of this weird, fun, mildly scary thing to just kind of throw out into the ether. And I'm lucky enough to have a lot of people that I know and who love me, who are very supportive. And they're just like, oh, I didn't know that. That's cool that you were okay with sharing that with us. And it was really cool. So I just want to share that.
You know what's really funny is that because I've known that about you for so long, that didn't even register on my radar as a thing that had happened. And now that you mention it, I remember you doing that.
Yeah.
And it just I just skated on past like, la, 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 yeah, I know that. And I didn't even stop to read the comments. And now I have to go back and do that.
Yeah, it was weird because I think the people who've known me for a really long time either already knew that and were like, duh, or, but a lot of the friends that I had made through my previous job, I don't think I have any of my new job friends on there currently, but I don't think they'd be surprised either. But my old coworkers were like, oh, I didn't know that. Not surprised, but okay. I was like, well, yeah. My family was very quiet. I think that they always kind of knew and they just didn't say anything. So that's probably a fun conversation later, but that's future me's problem.
I don't even know how to follow that because that's
sorry, I kind of
everything else I was good.
No, we were going to talk about Pride Month and it being important, and then I just kind of derailed it into like mildly serious things. So.
No, that's way cooler than. I don't know. I was going to talk about the history of Pride Month, but I feel, and I will, but that's. Well, then. In the most awkward transition ever. I was familiar with the history of Pride Month in the most shallow way, as far as I had heard about the Stonewall riots and knew that was kind of the beginning of the really big push for the civil rights movement for the community. But I didn't know all of the things leading up to it, and I didn't know about it. I'm not going to go into the super details of the riots themselves because it's pretty detailed of information that you can find because it really wasn't too far in our history. But I super recommend looking into it because it was so fascinating. I spent so much time online reading, and then I was like, oh my god, it's usually I read all night for just reading books. And I did the same thing with this. I just spent way too long doing it because it was super fascinating. But basically, on June 28th of 1969, the Stonewall Inn was a mafia-run gay bar, and there's a lot of history with that as well, how the gay bars were the only places where gay people could go and be gay openly, but these bars weren't run by gay people as well. They were run by the mafia, and it was awful because, I don't know, it was a rough situation. And usually they had tip-offs when there was going to be raids so people could, get the hell out of Dodge or pretend to not be gay or whatever. But there was no tip-off for this one. And they show up, the house lights come on, they start trying to arrest people, and one of the patrons of the bar got hit by a nightstick and called out, are you guys going to help me out? And all of a sudden, everybody starts fighting back. And they weren't expecting this. They're like, oh, well, they're the gay people, they're going to be really passive, whatever, we'll just get through this raid and it'll be nothing. They fought back. It was like an all-night thing. Like everybody in the community around the bar either watched or contributed. A lot of stuff happened and the riots kind of went on. A lot of details, again, I'm not going to go super into it because there's just too much. But the following year, on June 28th of 1970, that was the Christopher Street Liberation Day, celebrating the anniversary of that. And it was really the first Pride March. And they did it there in New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. And then every year, more major cities kept adding to that march. And everybody was celebrating. It's an activism protest, but it's also, of course, a parade and a celebration of being able to be out and who you are. It's kind of the one time of the year that a lot of members of the community feel like they can be out. It's just grown to what you've been seeing probably all over your social media and everything today. It's become a huge movement and it's awesome.
Yeah, I've really been enjoying watching because, we both have friends kind of all over the globe at this point. And so seeing people's participation in all different types of celebrations and parades. And there's been a lot of book fairs and author events, which are really cool. A couple authors, I think Will and Jeff both were at one of their local ones recently. And of course, that was awesome. And they had a table with a huge spread of just cool stuff. And they were at their local Pride Parade. And then a couple other authors were in various cool book fairs and stuff that are going on. And it just it killed me because I don't think where we live, there was anything local that's happened yet that's like book fair related, or I think there's a couple Pride stuff that's coming up soon-ish, the time of this recording anyway. So I'm just so ready to go to one. It's been really cool. I had a friend recently who she lives in Denver, and they just had their Denver Pride Parade, and she was representing her local chapter at where she works. And they had, I think it was like Team Gamer, because she works at a gaming company, and it was adorable. I was like, I need that shirt so bad. So it's been fun to see everybody's different celebrations across the United States and stuff. It's cool. I'm very ready for us to go to one.
Yeah, for everybody, there's more than just beyond. We're airing this towards the end of Pride Month, so most of the events will probably have been already done and over with as far as for Pride Month. But there's this really great calendar I found online. It's a Pride calendar. It's at iglta.org, and it's a year-long Pride calendar for events all over the world. So you can find a lot of stuff that might be near to you that you'd be able to do. And like I said, it's year-long stuff. It covers quite a large basis of time. So not just for Pride Month, it's for all the time. And other things too. If you don't have any events in your area or you want to do something to kind of celebrate or help with the civil rights movement of it, there's lots of really great charities that you can give to. I recommend going to charitynavigator.org because that's a really great place to find out if the charity that you're giving to, what they use their money to do. It's complete transparency. It tells has their financial statements and everything. It tells you what areas whatever charity you're looking at supports, and pretty much any bit of information you'd want to know. A couple I wanted to highlight is the trevorproject.org. We've talked about that. That was the whole Marlon Bundo charity that we had supported before. And it's a crisis line for LGBT youth, and you can have online chat and stuff like that. You can also donate your time and money to that if you want to do that. And then there's outrightinternational.org, which is dedicated to supporting LGBTQ human rights worldwide, focusing on legal discrimination, privacy and family, criminal injustice, trans and intersex rights, and safety and security. Both of those have a 4-star rating on charitynavigator.org, which is the highest rating they can get. So those are definitely good ones, but there's a ton of them out there. So I recommend checking those out as well.
And something that we had both talked about too is we both work at the same place, and we are lucky enough to have a very awesome employee resource group and LGBTQ group where we work that's very involved in the community, and Pride Month is really important for them. And they're not going to be participating in the one that's coming up, but there's another one in a neighboring city that is in September, and they're going to be doing a part of the parade there with the float and everything, and we're going to try to get involved in that. So it's really cool, and I just recently was able to go and meet with the group and get involved, and they've got some really cool stuff down the pipeline that they're going to be doing. But something that they had brought up was that recently our company anyway, where we work, was able to get a bathroom policy in place, which apparently was extremely hard to do because of the subject matter of it. But the person who I was talking to was like, it was more pushback than they thought, but they were able to get it passed. And I was just shocked that they were able to do that in the corporate world environment that we work in. They were able to get something like that in place. So I would recommend, if you do work in a corporate environment, seeing if you have something like that in place, because if there's not, then you probably should start one, because there are other people in your building who probably need that to be a thing. So just wanted to toss that out there.
Yay, Pride Month.
Yay. We kind of got a little serious with this. And
I think that's okay. I mean, we have a lot of fun and we celebrate the books that we love, but we wouldn't be able to do that if people hadn't fought for Pride. It wouldn't be so acceptably mainstream. We wouldn't be able to have a podcast where a whole bunch of people listen to it and support us. I mean, it just wouldn't be something that we could be open about. So it's important to so much. So deal with us being serious for just 2 seconds.
I know, and we're not very good at being serious, so I'm very proud of us for being able to act like adults for a good chunk of this and talk about serious stuff and not giggle and be ridiculous. So yay us.
So, do we have anything else we want to talk about before we jump into our bottom pick for the month?
Not that I could think of.
Yeah, I think Pride Month kind of stands on its own pretty well. So we'll leave that there, and we will go ahead and transition into talking about our bottom pick, which was Unbroken by Sloane Kennedy.
Mm-hmm. And this is the first time that this is the first time that you've read Sloane's work, yes?
Well, I had read a Sloane and Lucy book that, remember, you made me read.
Right. That's right.
And I say made me read. I enjoyed it, but this is the only standalone Sloane book that I've read so far.
Awesome. I like this one a lot. I like Sloane stuff in general. This one in particular was cool because the book that came before this one, that was Alex's brother's book, Dante and Magnus, that book is great. So having the excuse to like kind of skim through that book again so I remember everything before diving into this one, I was like, yes. Like I forgot how much I enjoyed that story. It also gave me a little bit of a refresher as far as who Alex was and the importance of it. You had mentioned that you hadn't had a chance to read the other book and this one was able to fill you in enough to where you understood what was going on really well.
Yeah, totally. So I had downloaded Atonement, which is the one that Sloane had recommended that you read, which is that one you were mentioning, Dante and Magnus's story. I had downloaded it with the full intent to read it, and then life happened and I didn't have time to pick it up and I was running out of time and I decided I just needed to go ahead and read this one. And I was not lost at all. She does a really great job of kind of filling in. I will say that it did entice me, both Dante and Magnus, but also a lot of the other characters that get mentioned late in the book. When I had gone back, after I finished the book, I went and was reading the synopsises to all of the other things in the Protector series. And I was like, oh, I know who that is. I know who that is. I want to find their story. So I feel like it's probable that you can probably use almost any of her books as a gateway to the rest of them. So I'm definitely looking forward to diving into more.
That's what happened to me because I started with Solution. I can't read it from here. The one with Tate and Hawk. And I think it's like book like 3. I started with that one because I don't know why, but I picked that one up before I picked up any of her other stuff. And I read that one first and then was like, oh, this is number 3. So I went back, of course, and she, just like all of her books, they're all standalone, but other characters will pop in and do things. So after I read that one, I went back and read 1 and 2. And then I think a couple more books in that series was already out. So I picked up those 2. And then I read all of her like cowboy one that was out. Like I just ate like her entire library. But all of her books are really good about weaving in all of her other characters. So you can kind of see like how they progressed from the first time you saw them. Like when Tate, Hawk, and Maddie shows up, Maddie the little boy, that's their book. Tate and Hawk and Maddie is the first one I ever read. So when they show back up, I'm always happy to see them because they're like my first love with Sloane's work. And Maddie is adorable. His book, he steals the spotlight constantly. Like he's just super sweet and wonderful and you can't help but adore him. And that's the book that I texted you when I was at work and I was reading it and I was like, this fucking book is making me cry. So it was like, I love him so much. And it was cool too because spoilers, in Tate's book, he wasn't like a big jack dude. And in this one, they mentioned that he's like bigger than Hawk in this one. And I was like, oh shit, he turned into a badass. That's so cool. But this book in particular, getting back on track and me not just like waxing poetic about how much I love Sloane stuff. This one was pretty freaking dark. I mean, all of them, like we had talked to her about, she's really not shy about tackling some pretty heavy topics, but child sex slave, pretty much the darkest you could go in my book. So it was rough in parts, but she did a really good job just kind of like tugging at your heartstrings, but not making it to where you couldn't read it. At least for me anyway. I was like, I wanted the bad guys to be taken out. I wanted somebody to get punched in the face and I wanted the kids to get saved. Like so bad. So yeah. How did you like the book, Jess?
I really liked it a lot. We've had some pretty dark picks lately and there's been warning that they were going to be dark. And so I was expecting that. And I knew that this was going to be tough, but I don't think I quite was ready for it didn't like throw me off really, but I was like intensely glued to it because I needed to see the justice happen. And again, when we talk about our bottom pick, there's spoilers, all of the spoilers. Having said that, so they get justice and it's fucking great.
Yes.
So yay. Once I got into it, that's really, I couldn't put it down because I needed to see it be okay. And I needed to see Alex be okay. I really want to go back. You've read it. Do you get to see any of that time when Alex is taken and Vaughn is there giving him the butterscotch and stuff like that? Do you get to see any of that?
Not really. The book previous to it, it's from Dante and Magnus's point of view. So when Dante swoops in to rescue him, which he does, obviously, because Alex is with him in this book, you get to see Alex when he's still very much owned by Father, or Marcus, I guess, the dude who owns him for that huge stint. It's kind of painful because he's not himself and he's extremely trained. And he brings up in the book how, like, the first time Dante sees him is when his father has him, like, bend over the desk and stuff. It's a pretty tough scene because Dante's basically witnessing his brother being the submissive sex slave to this guy. Nothing happens there, but he's basically all, like, on display. So you can see how far he's gone as far as the training and everything goes. You get to see a little bit about Vaughn being a good guy to allude to the fact that he's going to be the love interest later and how Alex's book is going to go. But Vaughn helps them get Alex out of there. And Alex, I think, mentions that he's a good person and stuff during that book. But the end of Dante and Magnus's book is rough because it's when they were saving Alex and Alex was not doing okay. So getting to see him now in the upward swing of him recovering and finding happiness and overcoming everything that happened and stepping up to the plate to help all those other kids, like willingly putting himself back into his worst nightmare, essentially, to liberate those kids was just so fucking cool. And like Vaughn tells him all the time how brave he is and how strong he is. Like, I can't even imagine a situation where somebody had to face something that dark and come out through it like Alex did. So I adore him as a character. And I also love that as strong and wonderful and badass that he is, he like doesn't like to cuss. And it was during the sex scenes, I didn't know if I was going to be able to get into it as much because he's so unwilling to say like cock and stuff like that. He uses like penis. And I'm like, that is the most unflattering word for that. And penis doesn't sound attractive to me. But for some reason, when he said it, I was like, well, it's okay because he's allowed to say it. So I don't know.
I will say that the whole fudge and fiddlestick stuff was really cute, and I laughed quite a few times about that.
Yeah, I did too. It was very cute. So it's great about hard-hitting topics, but people always get justice. I mean, everybody gets their comeuppance. So I don't think I've ever read a book to where the bad guys didn't get everything they deserved, because otherwise I think we would all just give her all the hell. Getting to see all those assholes getting taken down was great. And it was cool because in typical their fashion, everybody shows up for like the action-packed conclusion. An action movie style, like all of the main characters show up and kick ass, and it's just fun.
Awesome. Well, I will also say that when you say the setup with Alex being on display and showing that he's the submissive one, so Luca and his son, like, at first I thought, oh my God, we're going to end and not know how that ends up. And then right at the end of the book, you realize that Luca's book is next. And like, I'm really fascinated with Luca as a character. And I am just super intrigued about how she's going to work the whole, okay, super spoilers, spoiler times, super spoilers. So the whole Luca and Remy thing. That
I didn't see coming, like, at all. Holy shit. So when that happened,
I figured that she was going to come back and we were going to figure out what happened to that lost boy. I figured we'd figure that out, but by the time everything had happened, I'd kind of forgotten about it because I'm like, oh, yay, all the bad guys are done and oh, they're getting married and that's cute and oh, this is super sweet and I love it and okay, that bathroom needs to be cleaned a lot and like, like all of these, funny things and emotions and all of the stuff was happening, and then the whole Remy bomb got dropped and I was like, what? So Sloane, if you're listening, could you write me that book so I can read it?
Yeah, I desperately need to know how the hell that works out. And Luca's kid is, how are they going to fix him? The setup for that is going to be rough. Like him trying to come back from the state of mind that he's at. Holy shit. Like there's a lot that's going to be happening in this book. So yes, she does need to write it faster and then give it to us, please. Like, I need to know. It's good. But yeah, that one totally out of the blue, and which is always fun when a book like pops you upside the head and then runs off and you're like, what? So
It's exactly what it did, because I was like super enjoying the story, and I was again like I was just going through all of these emotions and super into it. And I read like the whole last 2/3 of the book in one sitting. Like it was
Same
like
here.
When I got glued. So I was just on this roller coaster, and I was just coming down the last little bend, and it was chilling out, and then I just got slapped in the face, and it was like, oh, thank you, sir. May I have another? Like I just.
Pretty much. Yes, mistress.
So I'm very much looking forward to that. I'm really glad we picked this book. I enjoyed it greatly.
So is that our whole bottom?
That is the whole bottom. I don't know. Should we tease what we're doing next month? We'll tease it. So we're doing something a little bit different next month. We're not going to be doing an interview, but we will have something special in store as far as a new angle on it. We will drop that to our Patreons after this show airs, so they'll know what's coming. And then everybody else will get to know when our top airs next Monday.
Yeah. So it's going to be fun. I definitely recommend tuning. We're going to mix it up a little bit. It's going to be a good time.
And then we'll go back to the interview thing the month after, and super tease, you don't get to know who it is.
Yes, you don't get to know who it is, and it's super exciting, and you should be jealous of our patrons.
And if it falls through, I'm going to be so sad.
I know, God. I love how we're being such brats about it, and then, if I didn't think that it would mess up my microphone, I'd knock on wood right now, but, hypothetically.
Don't do that. I don't want to edit it out.
Yeah, no. Also, penis joke, probably because of wood, and I'll take the high road.
You already missed it. You missed the high road.
Oh, did I? Whoops.
Okay, well, we super digress. So join us next week when we have our top episode for July. We're excited for that. And until then, enjoy the rest of your Pride Month.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.